were saying T.I. was a rat.
Well, yeah. Man, everybody know. Everybody know, homie.
Show me one place in the federal guidelines where you can have 10 machine guns and get 1 year of community service and 1 year incarcerated.
Some people call me Tip, but this is about another kind of Tip that can help our mothers, our sisters, our brothers, and our fathers help get the perpetrators who commit crimes against them off the streets.
But I'm gonna tell you like this, when I saw that, I think T.I. I think he went up there and just got the talking.
T.I. has undeniably been a major force in hip-hop, especially in the southern scene during the 2000s, but over the years there's been one thing hanging over his head that's made his crown slip in the eyes of hip-hop fans, being labeled a snitch.
You were saying T.I. was a rat.
Well, yeah. Man, everybody know. Everybody know.
In the hip-hop world, snitching is seen as one of the biggest betrayals, sometimes even worse than the crime itself. Once that label sticks, it's nearly impossible to shake off. No one wants to work with you, and the respect you once had, gone. What made it worse for T.I. was that big names in the industry started backing up the claims and calling him out.
Ticket caught all kind of guns, convicted felon. Murder service, go serve a year later on. You can't buy your way out the Fed.
And when insiders start talking, it's hard to ignore. Of course, T.I. denied it, as anyone in his position would, but the damage was already done. No one seemed to believe him.
People that they had no access to, and they just imagine.
Right.
And this way it work out in their mind. So I can't allow their fantasy to become my reality. I just can't do it.
So how did this all start? Let's break it all down. T.I. has had more than a few run-ins with the law over the years, from drug charges to weapons possession and even he's no stranger to legal trouble. But one particular case stands out, the one that put the snitch label on him for good. It all went down in 2007, just hours before he was set to perform at the BET HipHop Awards in Atlanta. T.I. was at the height of his career and the award show was a big moment for him. But before he could even step on stage, the FBI, along with a swarm of law enforcement officers, pulled up on him and placed him under arrest.
I heard his name too, and I didn't get a chance to find out though.
Okay, because I know he's supposed to perform tonight as well.
Yeah, that's sad though.
I mean, again, I'm saddened anytime I hear of a hip-hopper being locked up or somehow stunted in his life and in his growth.
And they weren't arresting him for some minor offense either. When they searched him, they found 12 machine guns, 2 of which even had silencers. Now, if you know anything about gun laws in the US, you know that's a huge problem. But what made it even worse was that T.I. was already a convicted felon. And felons aren't even supposed to have a single gun, let alone an entire arsenal of automatic weapons. So naturally, everyone was wondering, how in the world was he going to beat this case? How is T.I. going to walk away from something that serious without spending the next decade behind bars? Just a few weeks later, on October 26, 2007, T.I. did exactly that. He walked out of the United States District Court in Atlanta after appearing before U.S. Magistrate Judge Alan J. Baverman, and posted a massive $3 million bond, $2 million in cash, plus equity in his properties. That's a crazy amount of money, but it wasn't just about the bond. The conditions of his release were intense. T.I. was placed under strict house arrest. He wasn't allowed to leave his home except for medical appointments and court hearings. The only people allowed to live with him were his girlfriend and kids, and if he wanted to have visitors, they had to be approved by the court first. His suppression hearing was set for February 19th, 2008. And when the time came, he pled guilty to the charges. You'd think that would be the start of a long prison sentence, but somehow things played out very differently. Instead of getting 10 years behind bars, which was the maximum sentence, T.I. managed to cut a deal. He ended up with 1 year and 1 day in federal prison, along with 1,500 hours of community service and a year of house arrest. He also had to pay $100,300 fine. Now, to the average person, this might not seem that strange, but in the hip-hop world, and especially among people familiar with the legal system, this just didn't make sense. Look at Lil Wayne, for example. He got caught with a single pistol in New York, and that alone landed him a full year in prison. Sure, New York has some of the strictest gun laws in the country, but still, it was just one gun. Meanwhile, T.I. got caught with 12 fully automatic weapons, some with silencers, and walked away with a year and a day. People weren't buying it. No matter how much money you have or how good your lawyers are, getting that kind of deal is almost unheard of, and that's where the snitch rumors really started to take off. People figured that there was no way T.I. got off that easy unless he cooperated with the feds, And it wasn't just random fans saying this. Big names in the industry started calling him out, including 50 Cent, who didn't hold back at all. This sparked a whole beef between them, with 50 throwing jabs at T.I. every chance he got. And once 50 starts clowning you, the internet follows. It all kicked off when 50 Cent addressed T.I.'s alleged snitching on G-Unit's second album, TOS, Terminate on Sight. There's a track on there called You So Tough where 50 took some jabs but not directly. Now 50 is known for calling people out by name without a second thought, but this time he kept it vague. He dropped lines that seemed to hit close to home for T.I., and naturally people made the connection. In the verse, 50 says, "What's today's mathematics? Ish ain't adding up. Get knocked with 10 machine guns, only get 12 months.
Left girl, what's today's mathematics? Shit ain't adding up. Get knocked with 10 machine guns, only get.
After that verse dropped, everyone started speculating it was about T.I., expecting a beef to erupt. MTV even asked 50 about it, and he played it cool, saying he's direct when he goes at artists and that he was just asking a question. He basically left it up to the public to decide if they wanted to make it about T.I.
Like if I had an issue, when have you known me to be indirect with an issue?
You're pretty direct.
Right, so if I had a problem with any artist, trust me, they would know.
Is that line about T.I.?
Absolutely, for the public to decide.
That was pretty much the extent of their beef potential. Surprisingly, they actually went on to work together, jumping on tracks, and everything seemed cool. Fast forward to 2020, T.I. stirred things up again by calling out 50 Cent to a friendly 20-track battle on Instagram Live through the Verzeus platform. For those of you who don't know, Verzeus was created during the quarantine as a way for artists to go head-to-head and see who has the best tracks. It didn't matter if you were a producer or an artist, it was all about showcasing your catalog. So during 50 Cent's birthday week, T.I. decided to stir the pot by challenging 50 to a 20-track battle. T.I. wanted to see who had the better music and catalog. He even poked fun at 50, saying since Kanye West beat him in their sales battle back in the day, 50 might not take up the challenge.
For your birthday, I offer you a challenge, sir. Pull your up, man, with 20 of your records, man. You know what I'm saying? But I understand if you don't want to answer to that challenge, because last time you got challenged, Kanye West dusted your off. So, you might not want to do that. So, well, guess who ain't scared of your ass, 50?
The next morning, T.I. kept the momentum going with more videos, explaining how he tried to fly out to 50 Cent's birthday party to show some love and talk things over. However, one of T.I.'s homies called and told him it wasn't a good idea because Tony Yayo had a problem with T.I. This led to T.I. and his friend going live on Instagram to discuss the situation.
Where you was at last night?
In Brooklyn. In
Brooklyn doing what?
Doing 50 Cent party, had a great time, man, great time. Told me on the way, you got the jet already gassed up. I said, don't come.
Yeah.
I said, don't come.
What you say?
I said, don't come. Say, boy, when I tell you that boy, Yayo, he either got a real problem some type of way, man. You ask me, he got some type of problem.
Tony Yayo didn't stay quiet either. He jumped into the comments accusing T.I. of clout chasing, then things took a more personal turn. The next morning, 50 Cent took to Twitter and posted a video of T.I. on Crime Stoppers from back in 2008. In the video, T.I. is part of an Atlanta news broadcast encouraging people to report crimes, which is essentially snitching. The caption read, "Why do you make me do this? This the first song I'ma play, You So Tough."
Some people call me Tip, but this is about another kind of tip that can help our mothers, our sisters, our brothers, and our fathers help get the perpetrators who commit crimes against them off the streets.
T.I. saw this and was not happy. He reposted it on his Instagram with a lengthy caption, clearly annoyed by 50's move. "I'll take this as an acceptance of this catalog challenge," he says. "We got him. He bit the bait, set this ish up so I can finally shut this watermelon head, invisible neck dude up once and for all. As far as this clip goes, it's cute, old, outdated, and in poor taste, much like your catalog 50 Cent. However, I prefer facts, and the fact remains I have never given any information to any form of law enforcement at any time in life to get anybody anytime for any crime. Supreme told me to ask 50 Cent if he can say the same. Well, that's all I have to say about that. So let's set this date and select your songs off that one hot album you got, and let's lay your little overrated, outdated, steroid-inflated ass catalog to rest. R.I.P. to 50 Cent catalogs. I seen you bully all them New York dudes for years, not Da King though. Despite the persistent snitching accusations, no concrete evidence has ever surfaced to prove T.I. actually snitched. In fact, T.I. has always been outspoken against snitches. He even kicked an artist off his Grand Hustle label after discovering the rapper was a DEA informant. Alpha Mega, who signed with T.I. in the mid-2000s, seemed to bring street cred with him. T.I. showcased him on the 2007 single Her with Busta Rhymes, but things fell apart by the end of the decade. In 2009, The Smoking Gun exposed Alpha Mega for working with law enforcement after he was sentenced to 110 months behind bars for federal gun charges in September 1995. T.I. wasted no time dropping Alpha Mega from Grand Hustle. He explained his decision in an interview on Atlanta radio station Hot 107.9, stating, "Even though all our artists and employees are asked by us to be honest and open about their past history, at no time did Alpha disclose to me or Grand Hustle what has now appeared in the media. He essentially deceived us by failing to fully disclose the truth about his past, and there is no place in our organization for dishonest and misleading behavior." T.I. added, "As I have always said, you must take responsibility for your own actions. We at Grand Hustle cannot support or condone the blaming of others for our own mistakes. I hope and pray to God bless his savings plans, but I don't foresee me or my company playing a role in his personal or professional business." However, T.I. later shot himself in the foot by admitting he once snitched on his dead cousin to avoid jail time. In a resurfaced clip from an August 2020 episode of his Expeditiously podcast, the Atlanta rapper recalled pinning a gun case on his late relative Toot in the early 2000s before his music career took off. T.I. explained that he and Toot were running a hustle in their native Atlanta, involving stolen upscale clothes when they were pulled over by cops who discovered a gun in T.I.'s possession. "We were at Lenox Mall parking lot, unloading the truck of stolen clothes. I'm talking to the man while making the play," he remembered. "This dude looking at everything like, man, y'all got? Mother F, we done said what you want. Get this ish and go." And right then, mall security pulled up. We got in the car and pulled off, and of course, they followed behind us and called the real police. So before we actually got on the expressway, the real police pulled us over. I had a gun. Toot, who introduced T.I. to DJ Tump, the producer behind hits like What You Know, 24s, and You Don't Know Me, was during the court case. At the urging of his lawyer, and with Toot's posthumous blessing, T.I. avoided incarceration by claiming the gun belonged to his cousin. "We caught those gun cases, Toot died. My lawyer said, well, you know, I could make everything go away if it was Toot's, it was Tremel's." T.I. recalled, "After he had passed, I had a talk with him. Toot said, I'll take all the charges you got. If you can walk away free and put it on me, goddamn right. Cause I'll be damned if they gon' come and mutheffing extradite me from here."
My lawyer said, "Well, you know, I can make everything go away if it was Toot, if it was Tremel's." And I had a talk with Toot. After he had passed, I had a talk with him.
What Toot say?
Toot said, "I take all the charges you got. If you can walk away free and put it on me, goddamn right."
When gun rights activist Nikki Daniels Jr., a guest on the podcast, asked if that's where the allegations of T.I. being a snitch stem from, he replied, "Hell nah, don't nobody know about that. I just volunteered this information. That's the only time I done ever said or gave information because that's my big cousin. He was dead and he told me that it was okay." Now, as we mentioned earlier, T.I. has had quite a few run-ins with the law. Harris first started dealing drugs as a teenager, and by the age of 14, he had already been arrested several times. In March 2004, a warrant was issued for T.I.'s arrest after he violated his probation from a 1997 drug conviction, as well as a 1998 conviction for violating a State Controlled Substances Act and giving false information. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison. While imprisoned in Cobb County, Georgia, he even filmed an unauthorized music video. By May 2004, he was released on probation, but after his release, he racked up a litany of probation violations in several counties around Georgia for offenses ranging from possession of a firearm to possession of marijuana. In 2006, after appearing in an Atlanta court on May 10th, and having charges that he threatened a man outside a strip club the previous year dropped for lack of evidence, Harris was arrested on an outstanding probation violation warrant from Florida. The warrant claimed that Harris did not fulfill the required number of community service hours he was sentenced to complete for a 2003 battery of a female sheriff's deputy at University Mall in Tampa. Harris was detained by several mall security guards at the time of the incident. According to WSB-TV in Atlanta, T.I.'s attorney said that the problem was nothing more than a technical matter between Georgia and Florida. The confusion arose because T.I. was also sentenced to community service in Georgia for driving with a suspended license, for which he completed 75 hours of community service in his home state. He was released on bail shortly after being arrested and was expected to surrender to Florida state authorities the following week to resolve the matter. Then on September 1st, 2010, T.I. and his wife, Tiny, were arrested for drug charges. This arrest led to T.I. being sentenced on October 15th, 2010 to 11 months in prison for violating the terms of his probation, specifically for possessing ecstasy, testing positive for opiates, and associating with a convicted felon, namely his PSC cohort C-Rod. On October 25th, the drug charges against T.I. were dropped. However, on November 1st, T.I. reported back to the Forest City Federal Facility to serve his 11-month sentence. His release date was set for September 29, 2011. On August 31, 2011, T.I. was released from Forest City at 7:29 a.m. and sent to a community living facility to serve out the rest of his 11-month sentence, but just 48 hours later he was sent back to federal custody due to a dispute involving T.I. taking a luxury bus from a prison in Arkansas to a halfway house facility in Atlanta. T.I.'s attorney Stephen Sadow told the Associated Press that the Federal Bureau of Prisons moved T.I. to a different facility and clarified that the dispute was not drug-related. T.I. was later released from prison and sent back to the halfway house, where he was released on September 29th at midnight. On April 30th, 2014, T.I. and Compton rapper The Game were involved in a verbally confrontational standoff with officers of the Los Angeles Police Department. According to Billboard, it was believed to have been disconcerted as a response to officers misconducting a group of bystanders afar from a nightclub the two artists were attending. In a video leaked by TMZ, T.I. and Game were forced out of the club, which they nicknamed the Supercut Club or Supper Club, by LAPD officials due to an investigation of a drug and gambling ring. The club's security guards were present at the scene and refused the rappers' re-entries into the property to avoid more legal troubles. T.I. and Game were forced to stand back, with T.I. yelling, "Oh, y'all got a lot of people beat up. We got good lawyers." One of the bystanders was forced to lay down with his hands over his head without warning, and security kicked him repeatedly to try to get him back up. Another guard yelled, "He goes to jail tonight." T.I. and Game were rumored to have been arrested for simple assault on a police officer and disturbing the peace, but they were later released with charges dropped. This was later denied by LAPD team members. In August 2015, the IRS filed liens totaling more than $4.5 million on T.I.'s property for unpaid taxes from 2012 and 2013. Then, on May 16, 2018, Harris was arrested outside of the gated community, where he lives, for misdemeanor charges of simple disorderly conduct and public drunkenness in Henry County, Georgia, after a guard allegedly refused to let Harris into the complex without a key. Harris posted bond and was released later that day. In September 2020, Harris was charged by the SEC for his involvement in 2 fraudulent initial coin offerings. Then in January 2021, Sabrina Peterson, who's associated with T.I. and his family, alleged on social media that T.I. put a gun to her head and threatened to K-word her in 2009. Following the post, allegations of SA by Harris and his wife Tiny appeared underneath the post. By March 2021, more than 30 women and at least one man accused Harris, his wife Tiny, and their associates of forced drugging, and intimidation, in at least 2 states, including California and Georgia, which allegedly occurred since at least 2005. The accusers alleged that prior to or upon immediately entering TNT's home, hotel, or tour bus, they were coerced by Tiny to ingest drugs or were unknowingly administered drugs to impair the victim's ability to consent to subsequent vile acts. In January 2021, Harris released a video on Instagram denying the allegations, claiming that all of his encounters had been consensual. As a result of the allegations, production of T.I. and Tiny Friends and Family Hustle was suspended. Then, in January 2024, Harris and his wife were again sued for SA. this time for an alleged incident that involved them drugging and essaying a woman in a Los Angeles hotel room in 2024-2005. According to Variety, the suit describes the plaintiff as being in her early 20s when the assault happened and asserts she was serving in the US Air Force at the time, after allegedly being introduced to the couple by an associate named Caviar, whom she had met at the house of the late rapper Coolio the night before the It seems like T.I. has a lot of work to do in mending his reputation beyond just the snitching accusations.